All right, legends, we are finally live. Sorry about that, guys. Today has been brutal. Many minutes late, 10 minutes late here. I don't know what happens here when I come to the marina that, I don't know, I just don't connect here with the stream. But anyway, we are live right now. We'll be discussing the price of Bitcoin, of course, the technical analysis. We did get a major move down yesterday. We did not maintain here any support at all. You know, the idea was actually looking for the price to maybe form a little bit of a range, but it just ended up in a simple double top scenario to come down to the lows of the range, right? Very simple double top swing failure pattern. The price action here was looking relatively okay for the price to form some kind of a corrective structure in this region. However, the price was just continuing to move to the downside. No three-wave move, no consolidation. It was just straight down. So now what we got right over here is very interesting. We've got a few scenarios that I want to talk about, of course. You know, are we going to finally roll down here and get a larger pullback? That does make sense. If we do lose this base right over here successfully, then eventually we would be expecting a pretty significant move to the downside. However, if this does hold, then we could get a significant bounce back up. I'm going to be talking about some fib levels. All right, this still is a very shallow pullback. If we are going to be forming a kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or a ABC kind of movement, this is still very, very shallow, very shallow pullback. And we are going to consider what is happening inside of this range to look for the next possible day trade scalp scenario, okay, here in this local area. I'm going to go through the comment section, say hello to the beautiful community. Make sure to destroy the like button, guys. We're going to go through the TA right away, okay? I'll jump into the content right away, into the analysis, and we'll be discussing the different possibilities on the chart, okay? This bounce is getting very poor in price action. It does look like it wants to roll back down to test the lows of today. Can we get that breakdown, right? Can we move to the downside and break down, or can we react at these lows and get a significant bounce, right, to sweep up the highs of today? Will we just form a higher low and continue up from this range? We'll be discussing several scenarios and where are the best setups lying here, the best levels and the different projections on the waves and the biggest confluence areas, so we can look for a intraday trading opportunity. Let me just go quickly through the comment section. Let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me, guys. Not sure if everything is cool. It seems like okay. My microphone seems like it's not doing too well here. Let me go right away through the comment section and say hello to the beautiful community. Kevin, how are you doing, my man? When 100K followers? I guess very soon. We are at 96.4. If people do enjoy the content, they want to subscribe, they like the analysis, my point of view, of course, right? This is only my point of view. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm trying to come with, you know, what are the different possibilities that could happen with Bitcoin and what we're looking at here on the chart. Most of the time, not much news that I like to cover. And if you do enjoy, of course, subscribe to the channel. Hello from Russia, says Pavel. Hello, it's already 4 o'clock in the afternoon here, says Pavel. Rudy, how are you doing? Stan, Andy, you are late. Yes, I am. I am a few minutes. You know, I try and stream here when I come to the marina, and I always have issues to connect. You know, sometimes I get pixeled screen as well. I don't know why the connection sometimes here fails. It's better in my house. Almost 100K subs. Congrats, my man Jerome. Much love to you, brother. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate these live sessions, Andy. You're very welcome. Let's analyze very carefully, guys. We like to do lower time frame. I was kind of expecting a little bit of a larger bounce here on the price of Bitcoin with the legends, you know, looking for a little bit of a rise. However, we kind of swing failure pattern from this lower high right there. The movement to the upside is looking very poor. You could really map this situation as an ABC already, okay? A three-wave structure. Is this enough for the price to just nuke down? Or is it too shallow compared to the movement down that we had yesterday, right? Is it a little bit too shallow for the price to get a very large impulsive move to the upside? I'm going to explain a few scenarios here, guys, that I am looking for. And maybe you do like it, right? Maybe some of you are very bullish and see the price holding this range, right? I want to ask on a poll, like I do every single day, how are you feeling with the price of Bitcoin, guys? Are you feeling bullish or bearish? Let me know right away on a poll here. I think it's very importante. It's muy importante for me to know the general. A lot of people were bullish yesterday. Lots were expecting a breakout here to happen on the price of Bitcoin. I think it was a 50% out of many different options that, yes, we are bullish and we are going to pump out. I think today, maybe the sentiment is different, right? You know, is this only a correction? Are we gonna pump or are we gonna dump, guys? What is next for Bitcoin? And I'm gonna go with 87K, or we need to do this a little bit. I'm gonna go with a sub 80K, right? Sub 80K or plus 87K, guys. What do you think is going to happen? And then I'll give you my analysis, my point of view, looking at the charts here, the levels of confluence where we do have good support, good resistance, and what the waves could be forming here. So make sure to stay tuned. I'm going to ask now on the poll, and I want to know your answer, guys. I want to know your answer. What do you think? Are we going to actually break down, or are we going to go to higher levels? What do you think? Are you feeling bullish? What comes next for Bitcoin, guys? 87K plus or sub 80K, which is eventually, you know, what you would be looking at here is some kind of a correction. And then we break down and we get a pretty significant move, right? Maybe an ABC, maybe a 1, 2, 3. And then 4, 5, we continue moving down very aggressively. Or we do get this zone to hold very nicely as support. I want to talk about that level. I do want to talk about that level because this seems a little bit shallow for the price to break down with power. And possibly we could create a liquidity grab. You know, there is a strong naked point of control. You got the liquidity, higher lows. It is a range. You know, I like this price action. This price action is very, you know, very corrective. You know, could this still be part of a wave 4? We'll be discussing that right away on the lower time frames, okay? We'll be discussing the levels and the scenarios that we are looking for here in this price action. Of course, the most bullish case scenario, which would be rare in my opinion right now, looking at this price action, you basically got this contracting diagonal right over here, a 5-wave structure, and then you count this as an ABC flat, right? ABC flat, you know, you sweep up the lows, preferably, and then you get the movement to the upside, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABC flat, and then you rise. Or on the other side, of course, this is a finished structure, either in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABC flat, you get the flat being a little bit more aggressive, an expanding aggressive flat. Or you see this as a zigzag, and you also have a zigzag right over here. So literally a double zigzag scenario. And then this was the top, and then you're going to start moving down aggressively, right? You move down aggressively to get down below $80,000. The price action doesn't look too great, right? Price action does not look too great when you look at the charts like this. It looks like it wants to roll over, right? We've kind of broken here, higher low structure, right? Higher low momentum. It's rolling over. Doesn't look too great, right? Doesn't look too great. Let's go right away through the comment section, and then we'll dive in through the technical analysis, okay? Make sure to destroy the like button, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy it, okay? We are range bound. We very much range bound, okay? It would be nice to see that low being swept, really, right? You know, this is very disturbing. We like liquidity grabs, right? You do see this one from the highs of last Sunday. Whoever shorted this, congratulations. Absolutely epic. Very, very simple. Double top scenario. Sometimes if you do over analysis, you get to paralysis. I was looking maybe for this range to hold nicely. I got some of the people in the legends, also Aiden, Coach, jumping into that short position. And it was a very, very valid liquidity grab, double top, swing failure pattern, trigger a short position with stop loss above the high. And now coming down to the lows of the range, getting a little bit of a little range here throughout today, which eventually you would want to consider, scratching some profits, right? When you do see a little bit of proof of support or a little bit of a range, just in case the price, gets a reversal. So, why not sweep up these lows? If we are range bound, we're still very range bound, as someone said in the comment section, right? We basically have the highs and the lows of the range. So what we do like is eventually sweep up the highs of a range and preferably sweep the lows of a range as well, right? If we can get a sweep of these lows, then eventually we can expect a nice little bounce if we do not break down successfully, right? So this is kind of the most probable trading setup, right? The highly probable setup scenario here that we would be looking for a bounce if we sweep up the lows, right? The question is, can we sweep up the lows in the next coming hours, right? Just as we swept up the highs here, can it be possible that we sweep up the lows? It would be the easiest trading setup, right, that I do want to explain. And of course, we'll be going through the drop, which is most important here, right? The overall idea here, guys, is quite simple. You either form, this is your first wave down, you're forming some kind of a corrective move in this region, testing the lows again or not, and then you roll down and you break, right? You break down the lows, you have a naked point of control in this region, and then eventually you look for a pretty significant move down. There is not much support, okay, in this area. If you do lose, all right, let me just get some levels here on the chart. If you do lose this area, these lows right over here, then eventually you got a relatively fast move to the upside, right? There is danger here in actually getting a pretty significant move down, right? You just don't really know where the lows can be. If this were to be an ABC flat, right, expanding flat preferably, you would look for the 1.618 to get a reaction bounce, right? Taken from this high to this low to this high right over here. That's sitting at $81,400, right? Not sure if you guys can see that on the chart. If this were to be a bullish structure and this is a corrective structure, if it is going to be if it is a corrective structure, you would be looking at a flat, right? Movement down, sweep up the highs, get an aggressive move down here, and then eventually look for a bounce either at the lows of this range. It's going to be very, very tricky here, guys. It's going to be very, very tricky. Or get a small little reaction at the 1.618. Of course, we do see the price action getting this first move down, little bounce correction. There is that risk of forming a wave 3 here, or a very aggressive C wave, right? ABC or 1, 2, 3, right? We're kind of waiting for a big move down after this kind of corrective move, right? This small little bounce. We need to focus on the lower time frame because there are some important details that I want to explain in this little range, right? From the drop of yesterday. It's very important to analyze what the heck is going on in this wave, all right? Going through the micro counts, going through the fib levels, the confluence zones, and look at, what could be the highest probability movement next, right? That's what we always want to try and spot here as, a day trading perspective. Anybody that shorted here, this is not a bad swing short position, right? There is that probability of the price really rolling down from here. So, yesterday's high was actually more of a swing trade short position, right? Could have got into a small position right there, low capital, and look for a bigger swing to the downside. So anybody that is in a short here, well, you would want to hold some of that short position because we do not know how powerful is the possible move down going to be, right? It could be brutal. And, you know, and even get to below 78K, right? Below this higher low. It could be a really brutal third wave, right? We just don't know how we're going to break down from that level if we do so, right? So, yeah, without a doubt, this is more of a swing short position, right? It's kind of worth having a swing short trade from that double top from yesterday, because when you do zoom out, you know, there's many bearish case scenarios, you know, that would say, you know, just looking at the price action, keeping it relatively simple, this is extremely downtrending. So, you know, you're basically at the top of the trend. And, you know, this is like a swing trade, right? You would really target, all of those swing traders would really target the lows of this downtrend, right? Which is basically $74,000 that might take several days to develop, right? So it's kind of a swing short level from that double top of yesterday. Of course, there is many scenarios that I want to talk about, okay? And of course, with those scenarios, they are levels, you know, there are potential trading levels that I want to discuss. The most bullish case scenario would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABC flat, bang, bang, bang. We suddenly reverse from here. We do not roll down, right? ABC flat, is it possible? You know, absolutely. You know, there is a valid count for an ABC flat. And what is very interesting about this ABC flat is this movement down here. I mean, you would have to look at this as a zigzag move. This can be counted very well as a zigzag move, right? What is disturbing from this low to this high, instead of moving in a 5-wave move, right? You want to finish a wave in a 5-waver and then get the next wave down, right? The fact that you've got this low here, this high, this low, and this high, it makes it a very 3-wave move. It's a very 3-wave move. And of course, that's what you want to see inside of a B flat, looking at an A, B, C, because your A wave needs to be a 3-wave move. Your B wave needs to be a 3-wave move. And then your C wave in a flat needs to be a relatively aggressive move down, which has been here, right? Has been quite aggressive and quite quick. So, you know, it's that kind of, the bullish case is there. Preferably, you do sweep up the lows here. Preferably, you do sweep up the lows. And then you see proof of support. A bounce here is you know, I would say it's a very possible scenario. Of course, there is danger of this, you know, really breaking down. However, I have some questions here right now. I have questions. Is this enough of a bounce for the price to nuke down, right? Is it enough of a bounce for the price to nuke down? Because not even the 382 Fibonacci has been hit. And in a wave 2 or a wave B, you would at least want the 382 Fibonacci to be hit right over here. So it is coming a little bit of a shallow bounce for the price to nuke down, right? Which is, you know, it is disturbing, of course. It is disturbing to see, you know, if we would have hit the 382 at least at a bare minimum, then I would have said, you know, yeah, there is a high chance that if we do move down, you know, we could break down very aggressively. As the 382 has not been hit, I am seeing this as a very shallow pullback for the price to nuke down, giving the possibility that if we do come down from the current price levels, that we could kind of double bottom, right? Double bottom here, sweep up these lows, even preferably these lows. We do have a naked point of control down there, and also the previous month close, right? When we do take a look at the previous month and week levels, we do have the previous month close just beneath this low over here, and also a naked point of control, right? Daily naked point of control, which was basically from the price action from last Friday. High volume node right over here at 82,600 and the previous month close at 82,500. Can the price nuke down from here and break through the levels already, you know, this would be a very, very shallow pullback for an aggressive move down. So you like, you know, I would consider the possibility that the correction has not finished yet, right? Get a larger bounce and then maybe move to the downside very aggressively, right? Get a little bit of hopium here in a bounce, get a little bit of more hopium, and then get the rollover. So yeah, we're going to discuss the lower time frames here most importantly, right? Most importantly, we are going to discuss the structure here, because for me, it is, you know, the higher time frame. It is clear the most bullish case scenario would be really getting a liquidity grab from the lows of the range, right? There is extreme danger there. It does favor that we are going to break down. So the chart does favor that a breakdown from this level is more likely to happen than actually hold successfully and get a, you know, a big reversal and head up to 87, 88K, right, in the next coming days. You know, this is like an, you know, not the highest probability at the moment. Just looking at the overall structure. So we need to zoom in, talk about the levels, right? We need to talk about the levels. The strongest level that we do have eventually from this range of the last few days is beneath the lows of the range. Naked point of control, previous month close, right? Which is March close. And eventually it would be a liquidity grab, right? You got some higher lows right there, and it could be that liquidity grab that gets an instant reaction bounce, right? To sweep up the lower highs of today, right? That would be the target zone, right? Very classic to get the movement down and sweep up the lower highs that has been created, especially if you don't hit the 382 Fibonacci. Very rare that you would get a large move to the downside without even hitting the 382 Fibonacci, right? Preferably even 50% to the golden pocket, right? Get a significant bounce from here and then maybe just lose the overall uptrend. But the fact that you haven't even come up to the 382 is like, you know, maybe this structure hasn't finished yet, and then we're going to get the bounce. Okay, so we are going to zoom in very closely to analyze the 5-minute to 15-minute time frame, right? To come to the conclusion, what are the best scenarios here? Let's go right away. Say hello to the rest of the people that are joining the live stream right now, guys. And we'll focus here on the pure technical analysis, all right? Very interesting level eventually right over here. And we do have also to the upside, there are a few levels of interest. Daily level, naked point of control around about the 85K zone for that lower high possible formation to then really look for a major downtrend. But most importantly, we need to zoom in on the lower time frames. Is it possible for this based on what's happened in this structure? Is it possible to get another leg up here to the upside and then get the rejection? How does the price action need to move on the lower time frames to be confident on the next movement, right? To see if it's going to move up or is it going to break down from here. So we will be doing that now in the next coming minutes, guys. We'll be zooming in, right? Because for the moment, it's not looking too great. Double top scenario right over here. Way to read this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ABC flat. Yeah, so not looking incredibly great. This countered as a zigzag corrective move in your X right there, and another zigzaggy move here is what we are possibly looking at. Of course, double zigzag, you are ready for a large move to the downside, right? For the moment, that does look like could be the case for the price of Bitcoin, as it is losing a bit of this momentum. So we need to take both scenarios into consideration and obviously realize what is highly likely, what is highly more likely. I'm going to take a look at the poll right away and see what the people are saying here. And and say and see, you know, 87,000 plus, 48% of people saying that, yeah, we you know, what comes next for Bitcoin, either 80K or plus $87,000. And then we got a 50-50, guys, here. We got a 50-50. Lot of mixed sentiment here based on the bullish case or the bearish case. Let's get greedy and excited. All YouTube influencers give us hopium bullish. Let's FOMO in. This you're gonna be epic. 300K per BTC this year, Rainer. We look at the local time frame, guys. We look to scratch some dollars, right, every day from the markets. Try and find, you know, some little swing movements of, you know, $1,000 to $2,000. You know, we look at those little movements, right? So won't go sub 80K, but lower than higher first. Okay, all right, yeah, I like that. Okay, so we are going to go lower, however, not reach $80,000, says Ripple XRPL. Okay, I like it. Jerome, liquidity grab to 80K, 81K, then up we go. Okay, I like it. I like it. 100K next up. We're going up, says Lameth Witch. Yeah, I mean, good Trump news coming. Very possible. We need to consider the bullish case as well. The bullish case is there. The bullish case is there. Just watch the chart. We are going to pump now, says James. Woo! I like it. I like it. Very bullish people here on the stream. Massive downside coming. Of course, there's very mixed sentiment here with the viewers. Dubai team will push now to 86K. I like it. I like it. I think we can come to visit 71K, says Stav T. Leg up first to complete B wave, C wave, and then to 81,500. Leg up first to complete B wave, then C wave to $81,000. Yeah, I like that explanation as well. I like the explanation of a leg up here first to round about, well, to complete that B wave, right? We're going to be analyzing this local structure, guys. This is where the meat and potatoes lies, right? This is where we got the highs of yesterday and the current lows of today. And now we are going to be entertained by looking at this structure from the last 24 hours, right? How exciting is that? To try and look at what is, you know, highly more likely, right? Because yesterday, guys, you know, it all really is in the charts, right? As well, you know, we did have a 5-wave move up here. That is really pretty damn good to finish at a highs, you know, at the highs here from Sunday. 5-wave move. You know, you also have this flat structure here in the middle. You do have a little 5-waver here to the upside. This is why it's kind of disturbing, because you can count this as a zigzag, even though it's not the most beautiful one. You can count this as a 3-wave structure. You do have a 5-wave move down here. Then you get this bounce and then a very aggressive 5-wave here on the lower time frames. Just very aggressive. We ain't going to zoom in here. But you can count this as one wave, this as another wave, and this as another wave. You can count this as another wave right there in your flat. And then this another wave, right? This new wave to the upside, 5-wave move up that we were looking at yesterday. So, I mean, the ABC scenario, it is there, okay? I'm not saying it's the highest probability scenario, but it's there, right? It is disturbing that from this low right over here to this high, right? You did move up in a 3-wave move, right? Of course, you need to start zooming out right over here when you do have a possible end of a structure, right? You can't only say, hey, well, this could be an ABC flat right over here, and then we move up. You know, the possibility is there, but it's unlikely after reading this uptrend from the last few weeks, because this could be an end of an uptrend right there. And now we're just going to start the new downtrend, right? We're starting a new structure here to the downside in the next coming weeks. It just looks ready. We love zooming in on the lower time frames, but we sometimes need to zoom out, right? Remember to zoom out, because we could really be focused here on what the heck is happening right now here. And when you do zoom out ever so slightly, the last few weeks, you have a possible finished structure here. And in this finished structure, what makes more sense right now is looking at this as a zigzag, this corrective move, and then another zigzag move to the upside. I mean, this zigzag up, very, very much smaller than this one right over here. Much smaller than this one. So it is disturbing. I mean, could you structure this right over here as one wave? Not the most beautiful scenario. You would see this as an entire wave up here. Very, very choppy and complex structure, without a doubt. But the conclusion here would be zigzag, and then another zigzag right over here. Obviously, you want this zigzag to be a little bit more punchy, to be more symmetrical from this wave, not smaller. Preferably your third waves, you want them a little bit more stronger than your first ones, right? You can see this first wave right over here, and this second one, right? Third one, right? If you do count the corrective move as well, is a little bit stronger than your first one. It is more common to see your C wave or your third wave, right? The strongest one, right? The one that has a little bit of more price action. And in this case, from this movement, this range, and then this one, this one is very small. But it is what it is, right? It is what it is. So yeah, we're going to get to the lower time frames right now, just to make you understand that this could have been the end of a trend, right? This could have been the end of this uptrend, as mentioned, and we could start a little bit of a larger move down. Okay, a little bit of a larger move down could be very much the possibility here. Now, I like to talk about lowest probability scenarios, which sometimes, are the ones that play out, right? And of course, the lower probability scenario would be looking at all of this to be an ascending contracting move, right? Where you do have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the ABC flat, right? You sweep up these lows, and then the price suddenly gets a massive recovery. I think this is the lowest probability scenario, just considering the overall macro downtrend, right? This is really hoping and kind of wishful thinking that the market is going to get a breakout of this downtrend, right? Is the market ready for the breakout? For the moment, we do not have the breakout. We can speculate on higher lows, right? Where maybe we can get the breakout. But we are very downtrending on the higher time frame. It's it's just not, you cannot lie about it. The market is downtrending. We've had a nice rally from $74,000 to $85,000 the last few days, and it's just another bounce in a downtrend. So yeah, you are, if you are bullish at this point, after this price action, after reading the chart, right, just keeping it simple, it's like, you are bullish at a lower high from a downtrend. Yeah, you're hoping that we are going to reverse. We are going to break out the downtrend. So yeah, guys, the market is in a downtrend, unfortunately, right? For all of those big Bitcoin holders. And, being bullish all the way up here to hope for a breakout is, I'm not buying it, right? Not buying it. Yesterday would have been nice to get another high. Not going to lie. Yesterday was looking for maybe this to correct, form a little bit of support, three-wave structure, maybe get another leg up to the upside. It was possible. but a double top scenario is what happened here. Just a classic textbook double top swing failure pattern, back down to the lows and even possibly to lower levels. So this was the swing short for all of those swing traders, right? Because the movement down in the next coming couple of weeks, right, could be pretty aggressive, right? So we're going to go through the lower time frames, guys, right away. Just a little bit of a higher time frame, you know, easy to understand, you know, nothing too technical. We haven't got many indicators on the chart. It's just the price action, right? Just understanding the downtrend that we have and just understanding that maybe this could have been it. You know, this was the bounce, guys. You know, this was the bounce, and that is it. Lower high to form here, and lower that we go, right? Just in simple terms, we're in a downtrend. And this bounce doesn't look too promising at the, you know, at this area. So now that we need to talk about is the lower time frames. Where do we have? Let's go. We're going to zoom in right now, guys. Enough of higher time frames. Let's see what the heck is going on here on the lower time frames, and discuss this local price action. We're going to go quickly through the comment section, and we'll talk about the possibilities, good levels of support, good confluence, good levels of resistance, all right, what we want to see on the price action, right, to be confident in a trading setup, right? We want to be confident in a setup by the reading of the market, and we're going to give a few options here, right? What I do is I give you a few options. You might think, I don't like it, what a bunch of BS. We just give few options, and maybe one of the options could play out, right? Depending on one of the levels of the few options, that's what we could be looking at for a trading setup. So we're going to do that right away. We are definitely going down because I'm in a short. Yeah, good on you, my man. Absolute legend. Absolute legend. Confident. Yeah, I mean, the market is downtrending on the higher time frame. And, you know, it's relatively simple to understand that a movement down after this aggressive move down, right? We got a first wave here, right? The only bullish case that would be possible for the price to actually maintain this area and get a reversal, right? If anybody would be surprised of this price action to happen in the next coming days, potentially before Friday, is that you formed a flat here. Sweep up the highs and sweep up the lows. The only reason to believe that you could get a bullish move to the upside, preferably after sweeping up the lows, is that you're forming an ABC flat here, right? Of course, this could be a little bit more of an aggressive, right? Someone was saying that you would like to see an ABC correction down, right, on this movement. It could be a little bit more aggressive and form a third wave. But for the moment, right, let's just go with a local price action. If we were to sweep up these lows, I mean, if we were to sweep up the lows and then do this, right, and start moving up aggressively to take out yesterday's highs, you would just have to come to that conclusion. You know, this was a flat in the end. You know, in the end, it was an ABC flat. Possible, it is. It is possible, without a doubt. But it does look more likely that the price will get a breakdown from this area. Will manage to finally break down after this corrective structure, possibly on the formation, right? So we need to talk about how could the price develop? How can the price develop in this region to be ready to see what can happen, right? That's what we do. We try and figure out what are the movements that we need to see here to try and figure out what could be next, because nobody knows what's going to happen next, exactly from what level. Okay, we can have some projections and we can have some stuff ready, and look for the trading setups. That's what we do. Let's go quickly here through the comment section. Then I'm going to dive in, guys, and I'll be at least 15 to 20 minutes analyzing the lower time frame and looking at different scenarios. So you need to be patient here, right? I'll leave comment section for later on, but we need to dive in and figure out, you know, looking at, you know, the Fibonacci, looking at the timing of the waves, the levels of confluence, how the price action could react, kind of building that possibility, right, of what could happen next. The market will go up now. Yeah, maybe it can. Maybe it can. Why not? Maybe it can. Maybe we're forming a very complex range, okay? Any move up would end in a failure without momentum. Still kind of new to this, but understanding. Yes, my man, you will learn a lot. Learn a lot. Hopefully you do, you know, follow the good channels. I want to believe that, you know, some of my things do make sense, right? Some of my analysis does make sense. So is power speaking today? We do have some news later on today. We do have power speaking at 9:30, okay? 9:30 UAE time. So that's in about 4 hours from now, just over 4 hours from now, we got Jerome Powell speaking. But we need a 5 wave in a C wave. That is correct, my man. We need a 5 wave in a C wave. That is correct. Dubai team going to 86K now. I like it. I like it. Ready, analyze above. Let's go. But all good is just give two kind solutions of bullish and bearish. Of course, we need to always look at the bullish and bearish case. Always, guys. We cannot, you know, we can say that, you know, this move looks highly more likely, right, than the other one. We always need to give a little bit of a, you know, this is more probable to happen, right, than this other scenario. And this is big support and this is big resistance. So depending on how we get to those levels, we can consider, right, a trading setup. So let's dive in right away through the 5-minute time frame and analyze very carefully this movement to the downside. Here's where we have the magic, guys. And then we'll put on the levels of confluence and how the price could move. Phew. So for a C wave, right, if we do consider this movement down, a C wave, right, or an A wave or a 1 wave, right, we've got several options here. This regardless, you know, we are still looking for that 1 wave down. Is it finished? Is this wave 1 finished right over here? Or wave A or wave C? Is all of this a finished structure and this is a new one right over here? Right? Well, you would argue, discuss, yes, purely based on the timing. Yesterday we did move very nicely in a 5 wave move, right? We did move very nicely in a 5 wave move down here, as you can see, right? Very, very nice. Wave 4 not overlapping the wave 1 just by a few dollars, right? If you do take a look at this pivot low, you did not hit it with that bounce. So that is already Elliott wave theory here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, movement down. This movement up before continuation down would have to be your wave 2. It would have to be your wave 2, right? Preferably your wave 2 does get a larger bounce to at least the 50% even. It was just a shallow wave 2. This is what happens in downtrends, right? You get a very aggressive movement down, right? Price moves down faster than it moves up, you know, when you're in a downtrend especially, right? So this is how you would have to map this situation. You got your first initial wave to the downside right over here. This has to be your corrective structure, right? We need to put this on micro. This has to be your corrective structure right over here. Very, very small. Your next movement does happen right over here. So now the question is, was this your wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and wave 5? And now you are forming that corrective move, right? Maybe even this is, you know, the ABC movement. That is the overall question. What is disturbing about this, right? We are going to do the micro counts, but let's just do this, and this, right? So you can see how, you know, this would have to be your first initial movement, then this one, you got your possible impulse. And then you have this. When we do look at this price action, we have moved up, not even hitting the 382 Fibonacci. 382 Fibonacci has not been hit, and this would be rare for the price to nuke down from here. Okay, would be rare to nuke down without hitting at least the 382 Fibonacci. Get a bit of a larger relief rally, and then maybe, you know, you look for a new impulsive move to the downside, right? Look for a new aggressive wave to the downside. The fact that we haven't hit the 382 and we would roll down from here is disturbing. You know, I would say that there is a possibility for the price to, to literally get a bounce here. Look for a swing failure pattern. What I would be looking at is the potential of forming an ABC flat and then maybe rolling to the downside. Just because this is a shallow pullback. This is very shallow. Very, very shallow pullback. You know, I would want to see the prices go to higher levels. Very shallow pullback to get an aggressive move breakdown, in my personal opinion. So what would be nice, not sure if we do have any news right now. We've got stock market open. I think stock market, is it New York open right now? 5:30 UAE time. Getting a bit of internal volatility. $382 not been hit. That is disturbing. We moved up in a zigzaggy move, I have to say. Bit of a zigzag move here. If the price does move down from here, you get the leg down, you get a little bounce. If we move down like this, you could potentially map this scenario as a ABC flat, okay? The fact that I would be interested in a local double bottom here, and this high to get into a short, you know, unless you get into this swing failure pattern from this wave 4 right over here. You know, that was an aggressive short, I have to say. Aggressive short, your wave 4. I mean, an ABC movement, it is common to get to your potential wave 4 ABC, and swing failure pattern from a wave 4 is very common. If we were to move down to the lows, it will be looking very interesting for the price to get a larger bounce. You know, the main reason why I would be very interested in a sweep of the lows, preferably getting down to even these lows right over here, is because we haven't hit the 382 Fibonacci, at least at a bare minimum. Right? So this would be a very, very interesting area to see the reaction. We do have a couple of lows. We do have a naked point of control. We do have the previous month close as well down at these levels. 82,500 to 82,600. And you also have this higher low right over here that could be it's a great liquidity grab. Would be a swing failure pattern. And of course you do have this one for the swing failure pattern as well, which is literally the lows of the range. So with this small little bounce that we've had right now, so we're getting a little bit of a bounce after this movement down. If we do get a lower high, and then an aggressive move down. A 3-wave move up, a 3-wave move down, and then look for the bounce here. This is going to be a little bit of a sniper and a dangerous scenario, because you always know the risk of the price rolling down very aggressively, right? You do have that risk of the price rolling down. But, you know, as mentioned, there is some pretty interesting probability if you do sweep up the lows from this high. You know, if this were to be the high and you move down from this region, the fact that after the aggressive move down that we had yesterday of $3,000, right? 3,500. Yeah, not even that, just slightly above $3,000 of a move. The fact that this is a shallow bounce, you know, it doesn't, you know, I'm like, you know, we're not ready yet for the price to roll down aggressively. You know, this is not ready. Not ready. It is a shallow pullback. You know, we need to go to higher levels to then consider the possible reversal at certain levels, right? Get a bit of a larger bounce, you know, 382, even 50% Fibonacci, get to 84,000 plus 85,000, and then analyze this local bounce. So if we were to roll down from here, right? If we were to roll down, we might just pump up here. Somebody was saying that Dubai team is going to pump the price to 86K, which I have to say, maybe it is, maybe it is possible. Maybe it is possible. But if the price were to roll down, okay, I would really consider that flat structure. Zigzag move, and if you do get some kind of a zigzag move down here, then you would look for the sweep up of the local highs of today. Remember this, you know, this is a liquidity game as well, right? This is a liquidity game. So a sweep of the highs, double top scenario, correction down. If you come down to sweep up the lows of the range, you know that you can get a pretty nice reaction bounce. If you swing failure pattern from here and you front run all of these levels, which is, you know, this higher low is more interesting. This higher low is definitely more interesting to get supported. So preferably you do not swing failure pattern from here, and you do go slightly lower, and then you get the relatively strong bounce, right? So interesting area for me, you know, is sweeping up the lows. That is if you don't get up to the 382 in the next coming hours, right? Maybe you pump aggressively from here and you get a significant bounce. You rally very aggressively, which it is bouncing after this wick. It is getting a nice little bounce. Stock market is moving up. Stock market is getting a little bit of a movement to the upside here. Nothing too aggressive, but so yeah, we're probably just going to take out the highs here again, right? And maybe this scenario will no longer become relevant for me, because you already hit the 382. You're already moving up here to the upside, but it's just something that you would have to consider, right? You know, if we do not take out these highs and we move down, a flat structure would be an option. A flat structure would be an option, either sweeping up these lows or sweeping up these lows. There's only a few $100s of a difference between the two levels, 82,700 to 82,900. But the price is bouncing right now after this movement down. Getting a little bit of a bounce. Yeah, what is interesting about this local price action is that possibly we formed a flat. We formed actually a flat in this very, very local price action. You got today's pump. You do have today's pump right over here. This leg to the upside. This could possibly be that flat. sweep up the highs, sweep up the lows, and now you're going to get a nice move to the upside to complete a larger A, B, C kind of movement, right? You do actually break out here in a bit of a third wave. This is going to be interesting. We need to talk about both scenarios, right? We might lower high from here. Very, very difficult right now. The most interesting scenario, if we do not take out this high very aggressively, which we can do so, that would have been an interesting scenario, right? We move down to the lows and you have a zigzag. You look for another zigzag here and then a fast recovery bounce to the highs. Eventually looking for that ABC flat scenario. By the looks of things, right, if this is the end of an impulse, and you know, there's only a main reason why I'm not considering this a wave 4 here. You might think, why aren't you considering this a wave 4? This is your wave 1, this is your wave 2. Why couldn't this be your wave 3 and you're going to get a wave 5 here? Well, it all has to do with the timing, right? It's not symmetrical, right? It is not symmetrical at all. For this to be your wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, and all of this your wave 4 right now, and now you're forming your wave 5 to then get a larger relief rally. The timing is massive from your wave 4 and your wave 2, right? It just does not make sense. It's something like 10 times longer in time. So the timing of your wave 2 here and your wave 4, you know, it's just too large, right? It's just too large in timing, which eventually decreases the probability that you are looking at this as a wave 4 right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, extremely long, and then 5. Yeah, for me, no. For me, no. If you want to consider that, you are literally, if you were to consider this scenario, you're literally at the limit level for this to be a wave 4. Because if this is your wave 2 right there, right, and you know, this is what we mentioned at the beginning of the stream, where on the micro count, right, you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 corrective move, next wave down. You're literally getting rejected today at the limit zone, right, which is the 50% Fibonacci. You don't want to hit golden pocket, because then eventually you're not in a wave 4. This is not your wave 4, which I'm not considering this being the wave 4 anyway, based on the timing. This is taking a long time to be a corrective wave compared to your wave 2, if you want to consider all of this of an impulse. So it's overextended already, right? So I'm not even considering it. But if it were to be so, I mean, 50% has to be your last level to reject without hitting the golden pocket. That would already invalidate your wave 4, right? You're almost overlapping wave 1 here as well. So not considering that anyway. You know, I'm considering this as the end already, right, of this movement down. And now what we're looking at here is part of the corrective structure, or an impulse, right? We just right, double 1, 2, bang, we form a third wave, 4, 5, 4, 5, right? We go to higher levels. But it's going to be interesting, the information that we get next, okay? Because, you know, throughout the beginning of the stream, you know, I said if this were to be the highs and we roll down, we got a zigzag move, and you know, possible zigzag move here would be very interesting to look for the bounce to sweep up the highs in an ABC flat. Why would you consider this? Because, you know, this bounce that we've had is very shallow. You know, not even the 382 Fibonacci has been hit. And over 78% of the times from the waves, you hit the 382 Fibonacci. Especially if you know, consider it a wave 2 eventually. If you consider it a wave 2, you would want to retrace a little bit more. But so it's, you know, most of the times, almost always, right? Most of the times you would consider the 382 at least being hit, and also 50% or golden pocket. The fact that you haven't hit the 382, and if you were to move down to attempt to break down the lows of the range here, you need to believe that a flat is possible. You need to believe that a flat here would be very much a possibility to then get up to the highs and then maybe roll down. So it's just one scenario that you would consider, right? If the 382 is not hit, you look for a flat 382, 50% hit, and then maybe then roll down. If the price does move up from here, you know, then I'm not interested in this, right? We instantly throw this in the trash, right? This is no longer relevant. I'm not interested. So if we were to break up, what would I be looking for, right? What's the next move? If we were to break out from this high, then eventually you have this movement forming a higher low at the 0.88. I mean, this is extremely rare. You would assume that this low is going to be taken at some point, because for this to be a wave 2, you know, in an impulse is very rare. Let's leave it that way. So you would have to consider this a wave B, where you have your wave 1, your wave A, sorry, and your wave B, and now you are in the formation of your wave C. So why not this high to be the wave C? You know, it's possible that that could be your wave C high. However, you did move a little bit in a 3-waver here. You did move very 3-wavy, and you want 5 waves in a C wave. So, you know, that is also a problem. So it would actually make sense if the price were to break out from here. But, you know, let's just imagine that the price does manage to break out. You would have to consider this your A wave, your B wave, and that you're still forming your first wave. Okay, your first wave right over here of your C wave. So what you would want to consider here is the C wave is still forming, right? You're still forming that ABC move. This is how you would map the situation, right? If you do break out from the current highs of today, that this is your A wave, this is your B wave, and what you're looking at here is your C wave formation. Maybe going to 85K. We got a naked point control up there. However, if that were to be the case, that you do break out from the current highs, you have only formed your first wave up, which would have to be this high over here, because you formed a flat, right? You formed a flat. You got your first wave, your flat in your second wave. And now you're in the formation of the third wave of your C wave, right? So then you need another 4 wave. So literally what you would be looking at is, a pretty decent move up, right? If this is going to be a third wave inside of the C wave, 1, 2, you would want to see a little bit of a decent push up, right? You would want to see an aggressive move to the upside. Then eventually what you would want to see is the corrective move and your last leg to the upside. And this is what you're interested in. I would be interested in the end of the structure here to map when are we finishing, right? This movement to the upside, to then look for the breakdown. right? That would be the end of your structure. That would be eventually your A, B, C, or your 1, 2, 3. So, you know, as we get this price action, you are getting more information until you get the best setup, right? Because it's all about looking for the best setup, looking for the best scenario. You know, sometimes you never get the best scenario. There's many days where I'm just, you know, not trading, or I get into a trade and I get stopped out at break even. You know, I did attempt a long position here on a breakout. I will explain this later on in the Legends trading community, looking for a nice little leg up here, at least. In, you know, my idea here was looking at a 5-wave move to form an ABC. However, we got the choppiness, so, you know, then we look for the next one. We did actually form a possible flat here, and now you are in the initial stages of that next move up. That is only if you do take out the highs. If you do not take out this high, right, in an aggressive move up, and we roll down from here, you know, I would consider that ABC flat. A, B, and then C wave up, right? I would look for kind of a relief rally to sweep up today's highs, which is eventually your target zone. So it is a very good setup. It's not going to be easy for most of the people. How low can we go if we are forming an A wave, a B wave, right? How low can this B wave go? Can you sweep up these lows and form a swing failure pattern from the lows here of 13th of April, right? You just dip beneath this low and then boom, you know, you get your ABC flat. Maybe it's that low, yeah. Maybe it breaks to lower levels and it gets to the naked point of control or the previous month close. And that's the one where it bounces. Well, inside of your B flats, the most common area is the 1236 to the 1382 Fibonacci extension. So if this is your low and this is your high, we do not break out from this high to continue this ABC correction. Then we reverse this. The 1236 to the 1382 is your common area for a B, sweep up the lows, and then you look for the recovery back up here. Flat scenario. Remember, this is a liquidity game as well. So this is a moment of fear, moment of holy crap, we are breaking down. This ain't looking good. I do not want to long here because I do not want to go against the trend. This is not looking good at all. You know, who the heck wants to long as the price is coming down against you, right? You know, but then you get the relief pump out of nowhere and it's like, oh, you know, I missed the, where should I long, right? Where should I long? Where should I short? I missed the move, right? Very, very, very common. It even happens to me, of course, right? Happens to most. But you got some levels, you got some guidelines here. You got some guidelines for this scenario, right? If the price did not bounce here to hit the 382, at least for a nice, you know, ABC, boom, then we get the next wave down, right? Either a C wave or a third wave. You know, you're looking for that aggressive move down potentially to happen in the next couple of days. So as the 382 was not hit, I need to give a chance for the flat. I need to give this a chance to then maybe go down. I need to give it a chance because it is not common to move up to the 236 and then aggressively move down. It is not common to see a shallow retracement without hitting the 382 to get an aggressive move down. It's just not common. As I do know it's not common to happen, if we move down without hitting the 382 after this 3-wave move up, I would consider a possible 3-wave move down to create a flat. To create that ABC flat. And then you pump here very aggressively, right? These are usually, these kind of swing failure patterns happen very fast. You know, a C wave, even if you're considering this a flat right over here, right? You can see how aggressive this movement down has happened. If you were to consider the bullish case, which has low probability, unfortunately, this an ABC flat where you have this a zigzag and all of this a zigzag move as well. Very easy to count. You got a flat in the middle here of your B wave. It's a 3-wave structure. The C wave moves down very aggressively. You know, you can see how it's moved down very aggressively. So usually your C waves are aggressive if this were to be an ABC flat or a start of an impulse. But just for an example here, usually your C wave takes less time than the development of your A and B together, right? If this were to be a 3-wave structure, corrective structure, and you do form a 3-wave move up here, if one of these levels does bounce, if you do get this being an ABC flat, this movement right over here will happen much faster than the development of this. It is a fast move that usually, happens. In this case, would happen in a couple of hours to get that bounce. So there is a chance here if you do not take out these highs. If you do not hit the 382, you would have to give the flat an opportunity, a possibility, because you didn't hit the 382 with this zigzag. So yeah, it's just something that I would consider if these highs are not taken. And I think it could be a high probability move. So back to the scenario, if we were to roll down the 236 to the 1236, sorry, to the 1382 extension from the lows to the A's to the from the low here, okay, to the end of this A wave, right? If you're considering this a 3-wave A wave for a flat, is the 1236 to the 1382. 1.618 extension could be hit, but it is already rare. You would really have to decrease the probability that you are forming a flat here. But just because you do have the naked point of control, that higher low right there. I mean, the 1236. I mean, this is perfect. It is perfect. This white horizontal line that we have here on the chart, this one, is that higher low. It's that higher low from the 12th of April. This higher low from the 12th of April with the naked point of control and the previous month close, right? March close is 82,500. Is sitting where we have the 1236, 1382 extension, which is the common area for an A, B, C flat, right? You would want to move here very quickly and very impulsively. So, it's just, if we were to roll down here in the next 1 to 2 hours, it's something that I would consider. And the 1236 to the 1382, which is your common B wave flat target, is sitting where we have that higher low. Liquidity grab. You got a naked point of control from last Friday, right? When you get the fixed volume profile from this range of Friday, you got that high volume node sitting exactly beneath this low. I mean, it would be nice. I mean, it's a day trade. So, how would be the action here? Well, it's either swing failure pattern. This would be a very aggressive move. It would be very difficult because if you're rolling down from here, you need to be, it's just not going to be an easy SFP, right? You would say it can go down to this low. I mean, this is all depending on how aggressive you are, right? You could just SFP from this low. There's no need to hit the 1236, 1382. There's no need to hit it. It's just the common area. It's the most common area for the flat. So with that theory, you would say, well, I would rather wait for the level to be hit instead of speculating, the sweep of the A wave that can happen as well, or these lows, and then get the bounce, then get the flat. You form a regular flat, which is, and expanding flats are the most common ones. So yeah, I mean, you just have to take that decision. If you SFP from here, do you want to sniper that trade on that SFP, or you would rather remain patient to see, I prefer this higher low where we have a point of control, naked point of control, and we have the common target area of the flat. Well, that's all the decision. Sometimes we front run the level. Sometimes we, it's all about decision taking, right? I didn't take this short, and I love double tops, guys. It was all part of a decision taking. You formed a 5-wave move up here, so a correction was imminent eventually. If you form a 5-waver, there will be a movement down. The question is, has this been the top right there? And you're going to get aggressive move down. That was my question. Or will we correct here and then maybe bounce? Or will we move down very aggressively in a 5-wave move, which is what we did. So we moved down here very aggressively in a 5-wave. So now we come to the next scenarios, which is what we're building up here, right? So that is one thing. If the highs, local highs are not taking, we're getting a little bit of a consolidation here, a little bit of wiki in this area. If the highs are not taken here with the 382 and we roll down, I'm considering the flat to get back up to the highs. I would be interested in shorts later on, no doubt about it. Eventually, I would be looking at the 1.618 extension. If we were to form this, I'm interested in the 1.618 extension, because that is, basically the, from A wave to B wave, the 1.618. That is the common, area to find resistance, wherever that is going to be. I don't know where the low is or if it's going to happen, but I would be very interested in this, right? The rollover here. So it would be a long to take profit at the highs and look for shorts. That's if we were to calm down and not take out the highs, because we very much could take the highs in the next coming hours. And we need to talk about the, something different that could happen. But that gives us a setup. If highs are not taken and we come down to this to sweep up the lows of today, right? And even these lows, it's a possibility. Either SFP from this low or SFP from this low with a naked point of control. And you're literally looking for that movement up. I want to be in this wave. That's the wave that I'm looking here. The most conservative way in getting into this trading setup would be getting that movement down and waiting for the first leg up. And of course, your correction would be the most conservative way to get in. However, we do not know if this wave 2 is going to, be very shallow, or is it going to hit the golden pocket? But eventually you would be wanting to look, you want to get into this wave, right? And if you want to be more patient and see a better sign of strength that this is holding, instead of, getting into a swing failure pattern that can be, very stressful for many, right? And, not sure about the situation. You look for the big bounce first of all. But there is a problem, of course, when you look for that sign of strength, or that, that good sign that you are holding, this wave 2 can be extremely shallow. So you move down here, you get the swing failure pattern. And then this wave 2 turns out to be a mini flag, right? And then you break up here in a third wave. And then you're like, I wanted to get into the retracement, but the retracement was too shallow. I was looking for the golden pocket. It just left without me, right? So sometimes you need a really sniper, right? The swing failure pattern, right? The double bottom or the double top, the liquidity grab, and just put your stop loss above the bloody wick, and that's it, right? Because if you look for that, I want a confirmation, right? I want to see the price moving down and breaking, all right? And then I'm looking for the bounce. That's where I want to get in. You know, obviously that gives you a high probability, but if you want to get into a short position after the rejection here and move down in a 5-wave structure, and you're looking for the bounce in your wave 2, and you want to get into your wave 2, and this is looking at a day trading perspective, guys. This wave 2 was this, right? It was shallow. It was small. Did you jump into a short here? Or, you know, or preferably you would want it to see a zigzag. And then, you know, I want to get into this wave. I want to get into this wave. And the wave 2 preferably, you know, gets a larger bounce to the 50% golden pocket zone, right? So you're like, yeah, this bounce was shallow, right? To get into the short. So sometimes you just need to take the chance here on the rejection or a liquidity grab, right? Which will eventually give you a better entry, obviously, right? So let's dive in through the other scenarios, guys, right? This is only a scenario valid if we do not break out from the highs, right? Attempt to break out. But if we do break out from the highs, well, eventually we need to look for something else, right? So let's dive in right away through, you know, what would be something else, right? With prices bouncing from the previous week close here, trying to hold out this support right there. And as mentioned, there is an interesting naked point of control, which is basically from yesterday's price action. You know, yesterday's price action right over here. High volume node. Yeah, 85,000 to 85,100. Highest volume node from yesterday. When we do take a look at Fibonacci retracement from yesterday's highs to the lows, it's where the golden pocket sits. Golden pockets, most respected Fibonacci in the history, right? Golden pocket. Looks like we want to pump here. Looks like we want to pump. A bit very, very rangy. We could be smacking out here in that third wave. So we need to talk about this scenario right away. We need to talk about it. If the price breaks the current highs, this is the overall idea. There is obviously the bullish case scenario, which has low probability, I have to say. The bullish case scenario is this was it. We formed an A, B, C flat, front running the lows. Very disgusting, guys. This is disgusting to not get the lows. If this were to be the low, right? Imagine, and we do pump here very aggressively. This would be a disgusting low, right? Without sweeping up the lows. So, I mean, regardless, it has lower probability anyway. But, you know, just scratching here a higher low would not be nice for this to be a low. But you would have to come to the conclusion that this was your ABC flat right there. C wave not taking the low, right? A running flat. Which would not be nice eventually, right? Low probability that does happen, but you know, you just need to be careful, right? So anyway, let's just talk about the lower time frame possibilities here, that, you know, how the price could develop. How could the price action develop right now we're getting some very interesting internal volatility, guys. Stop trading. I'm not sure what you guys doing, but we got, some of the legends here shorting and longing very aggressively. We got a bit of a pump and dump here. My goodness, guys, what's going on in this area throughout the last hour? What are you guys doing? Because it is a 50-50, right? I asked here that on a poll, make sure to vote if you haven't voted here yet. What is next for Bitcoin? 87K plus or sub 80K? 47% of people saying 87,000 plus. There are some bullish people not afraid of the dump and does not see continuation down. 53, slightly higher people do say that we are going to go down sub 80K, right? What we're looking at here is just a poor corrective bounce that will end up breaking down after yesterday's aggressive move to the downside, which does count better, of course, as an impulse, as an aggressive move to the downside, right? So, right, going back here on the lower time frames, what if we do take out the highs? We break out from the highs here very aggressively. What would you be looking at? Well, I would be looking at the possible formation of a C wave, right? Overall, you would be looking at the possible bearish case scenario. You get the movement up, that's looking better. Aggressive move down, get that 3 wave, corrective move, and then start moving down aggressively later on after getting that bounce. So how can this wave develop, right? That's the most important thing. We do know that we have a naked point of control here based on yesterday's price action. Previous month open, not really much of a level here. Not really much of a level here on its own. Let me just double check here with the music. We need that music coming up. So yeah, literally here when we micro counting, we're literally trying to project the next possible movement. With this movement to the upside, what we do have is, a nice leg up. This ended up being a correction. Very, very, very choppy, of course. You do have the movement down. You have a running flat here in the middle, and then you have a shallow zigzag. So it is kind of a complex WXY. You have to label it like that because you took the highs here. You need to label this as a correction. Very, very complex one. A lot of volatility. So you do have a running flat in the middle for that double zigzag scenario. So you have this first wave up, the corrective move down, and now you're possibly developing that C wave, right? Then we go through the massive bullish case scenario, which eventually would bring 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 4, 5. This is gaining momentum. We're heading up to the highs of yesterday, right? That would be the big bullish case scenario. You just continue, a higher low right there. You would expect a third wave breakout here regardless. You would expect a pretty aggressive move up. For the C wave or for the third wave, it doesn't matter. If we break up the highs here, I would expect a pretty decent pump. I would expect a pretty decent pump up here if we're going to break out the highs here. I would expect a nice breakout and not a double top scenario, right? I wouldn't expect this. I would actually expect a pretty decent leg up. If we test it, right? If we test it, it wouldn't be a good double top in my opinion. And the main reason why is because if this is your first initial wave and this is your correction, hitting the 0.88, which is horrible, this increases the probability that this low is going to be taken at some point because it's a B wave with, it is highly likely that it is a B wave. For a wave 2 to retrace that much is very uncommon. So you'll need to give a little bit of more probability for the corrective formation here, regardless, right, of how high you go. Let's just, take a look at this wave here. Looking at this structure, you got your first wave, your second wave, right? Your B wave. If you take out this high, I need to consider this your first move up, your ABC flat. And then you're looking for your third wave up. Third wave up. Then you would want to see some kind of correction to bounce at the 382 to 50% Fibonacci from this pivot low to the pivot high, 382 to 50% Fibonacci, and create one more high. This is mapping this C wave, right? This is really what you would want to see to finish, right, your C wave. Inside of your C wave, you want to see 5 waves to the upside, right, in this case. So it's going to be quite interesting if you do break above the highs to see where, it doesn't really matter. A third wave here can be extremely explosive. You cannot know where the highs is going to finish here for this C wave, for the third wave, sorry. You just need to let it stop and get a consolidation, get a 3-wave structure. Once you do form this 3-wave structure, this 5th wave is going to be very interesting to analyze, to look for a short. So, you eventually need a little bit of more information here. And, that is only if you break up the highs here. That's what I would be looking for. I realize that this could be a third wave inside of the C wave here. So I realize that a consolidation, a retracement, shallow one is going to happen at some point. And then what I'm interested is, maybe a long position from this correction could be an option as well at the 382 50%. We don't know, but where it's going to be exactly, but it could be an option as well, or get a breakout of the trend of this little bull flag, because you're likely going to take out the highs. Might be a little scalp, but I'm more interested on the possibility of the rollover here, right? That is what I would be more interested in. So yeah, I mean, this is like going through lower time frame, right? It's really picturing the different possibilities. A lot of people don't enjoy it because obviously it's micro counting. It is very speculative at the end of the day, but that's how the market moves, right? The market moves in these waves, and you need to kind of map the different waves, considering your levels of confluence, right? Whether it's previous month, previous week levels, highs or lows, naked point of controls, daily levels. There is a daily level somewhere in the middle here, which is, can be a little bit disturbing. Might get a little reaction here. But I would assume if you break out in a third wave here that you can get supported. So, I mean, this would be relatively interesting. You got a daily level here at 84,500. If we break out from here, we would be expecting this to be a third wave. Why? Because you have this movement up and a higher low. Then you have this movement up and a higher low for the moment. If you break up, it's, you're looking for a third wave. Regardless if it's a 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and you absolutely moon here 4, 5, 4, 5, and this just really rips. Or it actually is a third wave, 4th wave, 5th wave inside of your C wave, right? Because what we're looking at here is a possible zigzag 3-wave structure, right? To be completed and finally roll over at some point, right? We want the price to roll over because the price is bearish, right? Bears are going to say we're going down regardless. It's bearish. And the bulls will just say it's bullish. We're going to $86,000, $87,000 tonight. No, market moves in waves, and we need to, get a plan ready and understand where the price can stop. Why is it stopping there? Why is it retracing to these levels? Why is it a good short, or why is it a good long? So, as mentioned, you know, this could be a nice support flip. If you break out here very aggressively, you head up to, you know, give or take 84.8, maybe 85K, and then you retrace down here. You are looking at this, you know, for a possible wave 4. So, you know, you might get it. There might be a good long scalp because you're back testing the daily level. You may be hitting the 382 Fibonacci from this pump right over here. 382 to 50% is what you want to see holding. And then you get the next 5th wave up. Right? And all of this is mapping the possibility of an ABC, right? Which is eventually, if you are bearish, right, you would be very interested in seeing where this ABC could finish, right? It would be an interesting development right over here that you would want to pay attention. You form 5 waves in your C wave. You got the daily, could bounce out the 4th wave round about this range. I mean, this is, you know, obviously really speculative, but that's what you could be looking for. And what you're interested after this bounce is the possible rejection here in your 5th wave, which could be, you know, that naked point of control that you have from yesterday's price action to complete your C wave, to complete your zigzag to the upside after this impulsive move down. And then we're looking for the rollover, right? So you really need to kind of remain patient to see this information. But if the price were to move like, you know, my drawings, which sometimes it does, guys, sometimes it does, right? Where do we have that drawing? You know, it's from that live stream that we had of this WXY that really played out really nicely, right? Not always, guys. We draw different scenarios because I don't know what the heck's going to happen. But we talk about the levels and how the price could develop, either for a short trade or either for a long trade. And inside of this range is where we got the ABC flat, right? I can't even remember right now. I've got it here somewhere. Yeah, this scenario right there. You know, we did the drawing of the rejection from this high to the movement down to these lows to then look for the recovery to test 86K. That's from a stream 2 days ago, I think, right? Well, this is from Monday, right? So we drawed this scenario when the price was hitting this high. And we were projecting the possibility of the movement down and the recovery back up to 86K. So the projection was this drawing right over here. This was a projection based on the analysis from, you know, Monday. Yesterday, we did a bunch of drawing here that did not play out, right? Yesterday, the drawing was, if we do correct, I mean, yeah, this was, you know, we moved up here to test the highs. If we correct here, you know, we want to see a kind of a correction, sideways momentum. And we did not get that, right? The price did move down pretty aggressively. There was no correction. It just rolled down. So no 3-wave structure. Price did move down very impulsively here to the downside. So it just didn't happen. So we are attempting to move up here. We tested the local highs. We tested the previous month close. You know, this is what I want to see, guys. Still very soon. No short here. The danger of, you know, if you want to short here, you just need to be aware that you could be forming a 3rd wave. I'm not liking this for a short. You're hitting the previous month close is acting a little bit as resistance right now. Previous month close, which is with the 382 Fibonacci almost. It is a bit of local resistance, but I'm not liking it for a short. Yeah, 382 still not hit from the local downtrend of you know, from yesterday. 382 not hit, yes, still. previous month close is where we're getting that little reaction. For me, it's not a good short position. Okay, so overall, that's the explanation. I do see the price attempting to push to higher levels. And you know what I would be looking for, you know, is that kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Get your, you know, get some pretty nice stretchy leg here to the upside. And we need the third wave, we need the corrective wave 4, and then the fifth wave is going to be the interesting one, right? The fifth wave will be the interesting one. There we go. We're getting the push here. So you want that projected move. You want to see the price pushing through here. And then what I want to see is the correction, the sideways momentum correction. And then what will be interesting will be the next leg to the upside. Golden pocket from the highs of yesterday to today, with the naked point of control at 85,000 to 85,100, depending on what exchange you're looking at. And this would be the moment of interest for me to look for the short position, right? Either on the rejection SFP from the naked point of control or the golden pocket, right? You want golden pocket to really hold that resistance with the naked point of control, stop above the rejection. You know, that would be the ideal scenario here to complete a possible ABC, right? That's what I would be looking for here. Your C wave is still on the formation. Still some waves that could be happening here to the upside. And eventually, that's what I would be looking for. Right? So we're just pushing up here, trying to push up. 382 is where we're crossing at the moment from the local drop. Yeah, and it would be nice to extend here a little bit more to the upside and see that development, right? What if the price, moves up very aggressively? Well, it would have to move very aggressively in this wave, right? From this low over here, if this were to be a 1-2, which I think is unlikely, and this another 1-2, well, eventually you're looking for the third wave to absolutely rip here. And then you're looking for your 4-5, right? 4-5. This ends up taking out 86K at the highs of yesterday, potentially. Don't think that's going to be the scenario, but you never know. You could be on a third wave formation right now, which I do think is the case. But I'm more interested in labeling all of this as an ABC, right? Then a 1-2, 1-2, 3, 4-5, 4-5, and this suddenly gets extremely bullish. So yeah, let's see. You need a lot of information still, right? You need the price to stop at some point and form a consolidation, form a three-wave structure, right? This is a new fresh wave getting developed, and what you want to see is that consolidation and then the next move up, so you can count a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is where I would be very interested to speculate on the reversal with the confluence that we have here. Golden pocket from the highs to the lows, the naked point of control. And it's just creating plans here, guys. I'm not sure. It all depends on your strategy and your plans. This is a beautiful area of confluence. The most conservative way of eventually would be waiting for the price to have a proper rejection in a 5-wave move. If you want the proper confirmation that you could be in an ABC flat, you want to see the rejection moving down in a pretty strong impulsive move, right? And then the bounce is where you could be interested, right? your 3-wave corrective structure here to then break down in a 3rd wave, 4 and 5. Right? When we zoom out, this is how the market moves, right? The market moves like this. So it depends on, you know, will you catch your trading setup or not? So you would be looking for that either rejection, you're looking for the 5th wave of the C wave, or, you know, kind of getting into the trade at the naked point of control, at the golden pocket. You are detecting the 5th wave of the C wave, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're detecting it and you're confident. You have your confluence. If you reject instantly from this level, stop loss above the high, or you rather prefer to see the strong rejection, right? You know, if you want to be a more conservative trader and be, you know, have more confirmation, you would want to see that rejection, first rejection, to be very explosive, right? Have an explosive rejection in a 5-wave move, right, on the lower time frame, and then the bounce, preferably in between the 50% and the 7/8 Fibonacci, is where you're looking for that rejection lower high to then look for the 3rd wave down, right? Eventually you're looking for the lows to be hit and get that aggressive move down. So, you know, it really depends on you know, your strategy, how aggressive you are, if you're feeling more conservative. But, you know, that's overall the reading that I have here for you more locally here, guys. And I hope you have enjoyed that reading, because it's just really going through the local time frame and coming up with the different scenarios, right? That flat scenario here no longer becomes relevant, right? We are heading, you know, in this 3rd wave formation, possibly. And what we're looking at here is, you know, the price to jump to higher levels, to potentially be forming that C wave. I mean, if that were to be the C wave, right? So worst case scenarios for the bears, I know a lot of people have been bearish and saying, you know, we're going to break down and it's all looking for the best trading setup, right? The best zone, the best areas. And for me, I'm not confident yet to get into a short with this price action. You know, where I would be confident is seeing the 3rd wave development, corrective move, bang. Then I understand, unless you could definitely form you could form a contracting move. I mean, regardless of whatever happens here, you could form a little bit of a contracting move. You know, this C wave could be a contracting move. You got your A wave, your B wave. You suddenly reject here. You overlap the 1st wave. And you're like, hey, what's going on? Why didn't we explode out in a 3rd wave? And then you form a higher low, and then you form, you know, a contracting move, which finishes your A, B, C. That is also possible. It all depends on what happens next. If we were to reject from the daily level, say, which is, we're just about to hit it right now, and we do overlap the highs and we do get a bounce, I would be interested in this double top. I would be interested in this double top in a contracting move from this ABC. So you really kind of need to map the different scenarios, but this is where it becomes very interesting as the price action develops here. Because now it's either this, and then you look for the roll down. It's either a contracting move to finish your C wave, or your 3rd wave actually gets a little bit of a punchy move here. We're just in the development right now. We're just ever so slightly developing that 3rd wave. So it's a matter of being patient. So it either extends, you don't know where it's going to finish. You know where it finishes when you do this. When you start correcting, you know it's finished. So then eventually this is what you're interested in, right? The local double top, naked point of control. This is the movement that you're interested in. Golden pocket. And you can even hit this level inside of the third wave, which is, you know, it even happens to me that you come up to this area, you hit the golden pocket, and you eventually get a lots of shorts, right? Lots of people interested in shorting the golden pocket or the naked point of control. And then you correct down, and then you get the fifth wave. And then you start rejecting. Right? And eventually, if you put your stop losses above the high, you know, you realize that you're still inside of the third wave of your C wave. The wave hasn't finished yet. You get a shallow pullback. Lots of people interested in the short, and you get the last wick here. And then you correct down, which eventually would be your fifth wave inside of your C wave, right? So, you know, it's just really understanding where you're at, right? Where you're positioned at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully you've enjoyed that explanation. The most bullish case scenario here, legends, is this 5-wave move to the downside, which I do not think is the case. Okay, very important to understand. I do not think that this is the scenario, but it is a possible count where you have an ABC flat here. This right over here has been, we'll turn that yellow and we'll put this on the there we go. This right over here has been your ABC flat scenario, and the price is literally forming a double 1-2 here, double 1-2, and then the third wave really rips here, 4-5, and you get 4-5, right? You're kind of getting above and hitting yesterday's highs. It really depends on the power of this third wave, right? The third wave right now is developing, so we need to wait for that third wave to stop, right? It's just moving up right now. Shorting right this zone is really shorting this third wave is very, very risky. It's very, very risky. As you can see, the price is really trying to pump up here, trying to pump. We just hit the daily, getting a little bit of a reaction at the daily right now. And this would be interesting. This would be interesting. Maybe the daily does create that rejection. If the daily creates that rejection, you know, what would be interesting would be this. Looking for that contracting move here. That would be like the ideal scenario. Then I would say, okay, we're ready here. This, I would be ready for a possible short here. Because I will understand that this is, you know, getting exhausted. And I would be interested in that double top. Maybe 50% of the overall downtrend to be hit. That daily level is getting a little bit of a reaction right now. Little reaction at the daily. But we want a little bit more information. As mentioned, we could, you know, we are in a third wave, in my opinion. You know, we are in a third wave, regardless if it's going to be part of a contracting move, right, or not, or it just corrects ever so slightly and continues pumping. So yeah, make sure to destroy the like button, guys, if you've liked the explanations of this overall local structure, which is just really kind of trying to map, you know, the several scenarios that we do have here available with the levels to, you know, give you the trading scenarios that are possible. Because let me go through the comment section, see how the people feel about all of this. You know, all of this analysis, and what do you think, right? Is it just going to pump? Lots of people have been bearish. Lots of people are bullish. Guys, remember, if you are interested in trading, you do have weeks that has an awesome bonus, okay? 20% deposit bonus, up to $2,000 maximum bonus. If you deposit $10,000, you're getting $2,000 on top of that, so you have more capital to trade with. You just need to have that $10,000 3 days inside of your futures account, and you'll be getting this airdrop, okay? You also get 25% fee reduction with the second link down below, all right? And you can sign up just with an email and a password. You can trade almost anywhere with Weeks, guys, and you just need an email and a password. Take advantage of the bonuses and the fee reduction. It's another way to support the channel, of course. Let's go right away. I signed up for the 50%. Absolutely awesome. Yeah, the 50% no longer is available. Lots of people were signing up for that. Let's go right away. I told you it will go up. Yeah, I know. Yeah. It was a possible scenario. Very much a possibility. How far up, right? Where can we reject and where can we bounce, right? It's very easy to say, I told you it's going to go up. I told you it's going to go down. You know, so I would just randomly long and randomly short then. Where's my stop loss and where are we targeting? You know, that's what I want to know. You know, eventually if this turns out to be a corrective structure, right, which is possible, you know, that's what we're looking at here, then this would be part of of a swing short, right? This will a day trade swing short. You know, the idea here would be that we're going to roll that back down to the lows. So in this case, if this is going to be an A, B, C or a 1, 2, 3, for this bounce, you would want to target the lows here, right? As a target 1 zone. As mentioned on the lower time frames, that's what we're looking at, right? That's what I am looking at, right? On the lower time frames. I know people are really can't take it, I think, right? Looking at the lower time frames, right, might sound like a bunch of nonsense, but it's literally looking for day trading opportunities with high probability, right? And you don't always get that very, very fast, right? It takes time, it takes analysis. You want to spot the best scenario, right? Even though sometimes you need to be aggressive and say, you know what, it's going to dump or it's going to pump. Let's just, you know, go into the trade. Well, it depends on your style of trading, right? And if you want to be consistent long term, right? If you want to be consistent long term, you really need to carefully plan your trades very, very well, right? And that's what I'm here to share. I usually get explosive rejections from the ladies. Nice one, my man. Yeah. 𝗬𝗫𝗍𝗫. I think bull now BTC market. Empire trades. I know it looks good when we're pumping, right? A nice recovery looks epic. I was in a long position, got stopped out at break even. Maybe some of the legends as well. It was a setup that I was looking at today. Let me just explain a little bit of a setup. You know, sometimes it's not all green days and blue skies and sunshine always when we look for a setup. My setup that I shared today, that was a possibility. I didn't really like it too much. You know, I thought, you know, we want to be a little bit cautious with this downtrend to predict a reversal. But I want to share it right away with you guys, okay? We do have the Discord, of course, where we do have coaches, daily analysis, setups, scenarios. And there was an interesting scenario that I was looking at here, which is basically what is kind of happening. However, I was not expecting an ABC flat here, right? This is the analysis that I should have had ready for, you know, a possible long trade here. But even though you retrace down to the lows, very difficult to manage. You just have to put your stop loss down here. But one of the scenarios today in the legends was we could be seeing this as the low. And what we do have here is the first A wave, the B wave, and this is your first leg to the upside, your first 1-2 of a possibility of a 345, right? To finish your C wave possibly, right? Or a double 1-2 and we explode here and moon in this third wave, right? Regardless, we are in a third wave. Now the question is this third wave part of the C wave, or is it a third wave of something more bullish? Right? That's the question now. And you know, depending on the price, how it reacts and moves on, then obviously that's what we're looking at. So, you know, this was the scenario here, right? Let me just explain this, because eventually the price action, you know, the explanations and the analysis eventually has, you know, we have an explanation, you know, for a trading setup. Let me just draw here a little bit what I had on a screenshot and an explanation here based on the analysis. However, I got wicked out, guys. I got wicked out. I was in this trade and I got wicked out, which, you know, sometimes happens. You know, you need to consider a flat always, regardless. You need to consider a flat always, regardless of the situation, right? When you're looking for that reversal. So let me just show you this here, guys. Okay, just want to share something that was mentioned today in the Legends trading community, which was a long trade from the breakout of this downtrend, finding support either at 50% or the golden pocket zone. However, instead of trying to long the lows at 50% or golden pocket, or you might hit the 7-8, we had a guideline here, which was the trend line. If you move down here and you break the trend, it gives you a possible long setup to then, the idea was look for the 3, 4, 5, right? Get that continuation to the upside. Based on this same analysis, based on this, it could be the end of the 5-wave move up. And what I'm looking at here is the possibility of an A wave, B wave, and then form 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? This was the overall idea of the setup. And the setup is this one right here. This is basically what I was looking at today. Possible finish structure. You know, possible finish structure is not easy eventually, right? This could have been an ABC flat and we could have gone down. Instead of trying to predict the lows either at 50% or golden pocket, you know, looking for a long position on the break of the trend, right? Break of trend here could be a scenario, because what we're looking at is possibly an A, B, and C. A wave, B wave, and C wave. We get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we are getting that momentum to the upside, breaking the trend. And however, this is what, you know, this is what happens, right? You know, this is what happens as well. You know, when you're a little bit too defensive, then you can get wicked out. I mean, but you need to have a stop loss. You know, you need to have a stop loss. We got the movement here to the upside. And I just thought, you know, I want to see this movement break out already in the third wave, which we are doing so right now. And then, you know, look for the 4 and the 5. You know, I'm interested in being in this wave over here. I'm interested in being in this wave, which I'm not. So, you know, it happens, you know, but as long as you're out of the market defensively, right? Because, you know, on the other hand, what if this was the ABC, right? Flat scenario, and you break down, you know, you could not hold a long position here and just be like, I hope for a reversal. You just get wicked out, which was my case over here. So what happened? You may ask, you know, what happened? The reading of this scenario was correct. You know, the reading of this breakout and the scenario was correct. What went wrong? nothing went wrong. I memean, the only thing is that, you know, I got wicked out with an ABC flat internally here, right? Internally, you had the A, the B, and the C, you know, and now with a third wave. Well, instead of this being your wave 2 and then 3, 4, 5, your wave 2 was here with an ABC flat, not fat, flat. So it happens. Sometimes it doesn't matter. There's another opportunity. So I'm looking for the next scenario, as explained on the stream. You know, let's get this wave 3 developed, and let's get that 4, 5, and, you know, let's look at the naked point of control. You know, there might be an epic double top. You know, I do think that the market is leaning on the bearish side. You know, I do think that all of this is part of a correction. And I've explained what I want to see. I want to see a little bit of a fourth wave here formation, and then I'll be interested in the fifth wave. It will be looking much better if this third wave, you know, if we suddenly stop in this region, right, and we form a shallow fourth wave, then I'm very interested in this scenario, guys. I'm very interested in this scenario, but we need that sideways momentum. We need the fourth wave. As long as the fourth wave is not in yet, and we cannot go to the 15-second time frame, right? No way. We're not doing that. Whenever this stops, the fourth wave, you will see where the fourth wave is. You will find out. Once you get a correction, you will know that this is the end of the third wave. Then eventually the ideal scenario would be a double top locally, naked point of control, which is sitting around about $85,100, $85,000, depending on what exchange you're looking at here. This would be the ideal scenario. And this double top is where I know I have high probability, and the projection could be absolutely insane. You know, it could be a very good wild projection to the downside, to get down to the lows and even break down the lows. So I mean, this would be a good setup. On the other side, for people that don't want to catch the double top or try and catch the fifth wave, we want to see that daily level right now holding our support potentially. We're only just slightly above the daily. This could also turn into a ascending contracting mover. If we do retrace from here, I would see this as unfinished. You know, it would be nice to get another leg here to the upside and look for a, you know, contracting move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If that were to be the case, you know, I'm still interested in the fifth wave. I don't see a fifth wave right now. So it's either correct down aggressively, get a bounce at the highs, possible contracting move, then down to finish your A, B, C. Or we still develop the third wave. We're still developing the third wave, right? We just get a little pullback and move up, get a little pullback, move up. We're still just moving up. So let it go. We let it do what it needs to do. And then, you know, wait for the correction. Wait for some kind of a correction that is going to happen at some point. And then you expect one more high to happen. And ideally, I mean, this is really mapping out into the possible naked point of control. Rejection, which is sitting at, you know, that's yesterday's point of control, golden pocket zone. But I need that consolidation first of all. I need that consolidation. I need that fourth wave. As long as the price is not consolidating and retracing, we could still move higher in this third wave. We could still move higher, but you realize how we broke out from the highs here based on the analysis that we were doing, right? We were just looking at the waves internally here, you know, 1, 2, you know, maybe a zigzag here, and then a zigzag, and then a move up. Maybe that was a possibility. If we break out the highs, I would expect the price to push through based on a third wave, because you have your 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or your A wave, your B wave, and this is the first 1, 2 of your C wave. You need to form 3, 4, 5 in your C wave, right? And you understand that if you take out these highs, it is not a good double top. This is not a good short. Not even the daily is a good short here. And I love daily levels, because you realize that you're in a third wave, right? And, you know, third waves could get punchy. When you correct and you take out the high one more time, this becomes a good double top scenario, especially if you have a naked point of control, right? You're adding confluence to the setup here, especially if you have a naked point of control, which is yesterday's point of control range at 85K zone. This becomes your epic double top if it is round about the naked point of control range. I know I have high probability in this setup, in this double top, in this rejection. I know I have high probability for this. Will it happen exactly like my drawing? Well, yeah, no, that's that's something that we need to see tomorrow, right? Let's go. Let's go BTC Bulls to $86,000. It's insane how bullish we can come, right? With a pump. I would, you know, the multiple 1-2 setup here and exploding in this third wave. And then forming a 4, you know, 5, 4 and 5 is a possibility, right? You got your double 1-2s, you got your third wave, and your double 4-5s. Then maybe a rejection, but it could be a bullish case. If we form 2 4-5s as we move up here, this could flip bullish. A lot of information, a lot of speculation. You know, the probabilities in forming a lower high, I think, is higher. Okay, we have higher probabilities that this is your first leg down, guys, and we are in the formation of a new, you know, of a lower high and going to lower levels. Let's go through the comment section. Thanks, Andy. My bull confirm. My man, Empire Trades. Much love, guys. If you do enjoy the content, make sure to destroy the like button, guys. It's just for supporting the channel and for me to be like, wow, you know, people actually like my content. If you don't like it, then eventually, you know, I would expect many people to unsubscribe, many people to not smash up the like button. My like button doesn't work too well, guys. You know, I'm really just coming here to figure out what could happen and share you the knowledge that I do have on technical analysis and you know, where I would be interested in the setups, right? So, you know, if you do enjoy the content, smash up the like button would be very much appreciated, legends. Okay, we like really concentrated here on you know, and just sharing my knowledge here, guys. Okay, there's nothing else to it. So what comes next for Bitcoin? People here, out of over 1,000 votes from people that have joined the stream today, 50-50, guys. Look at this. 50-50. Oh, I think with this pump, people have changed decision. People have, you know, people are seeing the pump right now, and this was ever so slightly higher, sub 80K. And with the pump, look how fast we've equaled right now. It's a 50-50, guys. You know how it's crazy. Out of 1,230 votes and going higher right now, what is next for Bitcoin, right? What comes next for Bitcoin? plus $87,000 or sub 80K. And 50-50, guys. It's the same, equal, not even 51-49. Pretty crazy. We got a very mixed sentiment. Shorts get wrecked this week, says Travros. It is possible. Why not? Why not? It is possible. It's the price of Bitcoin is at a very interesting area when we do consider the higher time frame as well. Huh? When we consider the higher time frame on Bitcoin, it's at a very interesting area because it either rejects pretty hard, right? Maybe going to sub 80K, high 70s, at least. First of all, we'll go step by step here. Because we're basically at the highs of a lower high trend, right? If this wants to continue being a lower high, this is literally the lower high zone, right? 86, 87K. You got 88K here, 89K. So if this wants to be a continuation of a lower high, yeah, this is it, right? This is the lower high of the overall macro multi-monthly downtrend. And I think there's a lot of speculation right now that this is it. We got the stock market crash that happened, right? When we do take a look at the S&P 500, it already happened. Lots of, macro bears and macro bulls. The macro bears are going to say it's just going to go lower and it's going to get worse. And obviously, the people that are just bulls, they're bulls. The people that are bears are just bears. But the stock market crash, right? And this is a big crash from all-time high just in 2 months. It's a 20% drop. 21%. The crash has happened, so you assume that there is going to be either money printing going on, or there's going to be all this tariff stuff and nonsense is going to get solved. There's going to be a plan to try and recover this crash, because it has been a crash, guys. It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like, this is like C19 kind of crash. This is, almost the same degree of a crash from the C19, right? It's a pretty decent drop down that we've had the last few weeks on the stock market. Already got a pretty nice dead cat bounce. And, what usually happens is, the big players are going to do whatever it takes to try and recover the markets, right? So, the question is, will it be V-shape, just like we had on the C19, or do we crash to lower levels, right? And it's brutal bear market, depression, right? As some people say. And I think they're going to take all it takes. They're going to use their tools and power, lower interest rates, money printing, potentially. They might use it. It's interesting. We got Fed, we got Jerome Powell speaking today, which eventually could bring some interesting volatility at 9:30 UAE time. This is literally in 2.5 hours from now. And there's going to be interesting speech, guys. There will be a lot of people, you can actually see this from the official Federal Reserve site, Powell speech. Okay, I think there's many people, crypto influencers, they're going to go live, I'm sure. Crypto YouTubers, maybe not TA guys, or yes, but it's going to be interesting what he says. And, this might have a massive impact on the market. So stay cautious trading at those hours. Don't be in the wrong side. Legends, thank you very much for joining. That like button got absolutely crushed. Remember to take advantage of the week's bonus. Anybody that is interested in trading or trading on other platform, or looking to trade on a platform or claim bonuses, you got 20% deposit bonus on weeks, guys. $2,000 maximum. You deposit $10,000, you're getting $2,000 in 3 days. Once you transfer that to your futures account, you'll be getting $2,000 on top of that, guys. So you have more trading capital. Take advantage also for the 25% fee reduction, okay? Because you get 25% fee reduction on your trades. And you also need an email and a password just to sign up, okay? I think you can trade almost anywhere on weeks. Legends, thank you very much for joining today. Trade safe. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk about the internal possible movements almost every day. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.